What is the first term that come into your mind when you hear the word Madagascar? Oh, have you not heard the word Madagascar? Hi, I welcome you to our YouTube series which is named Know Your Country. This is an initiative by Global South Forum. Now many of you might not be aware what the word Global South is. In simple term, Global South actually stands for the third world. Many of you might wonder what is the third world. Some people say the third world, apart from the West and Europe, West and America, what exists is a third world. So third world is a huge concept. It encompasses many countries in itself. Madagascar is the second largest island state of the world after Indonesia. It is also the single largest island country of Africa. It has a huge biodiversity. By some ecologists, Madagascar is also known as the 8th continent of the world because out of its all flora and fauna, 90% of the flora and fauna are endemic. The example of lemur are very vital in this aspect. If we have to find out the history of Madagascar, we have to go back into the past. The first humans that arrived in Madagascar was from Indonesia and Malaysia island. These people migrated from that region to Madagascar. If we go further back, we find that Madagascar as a geographical country was formed when it was separated from the Gondwana marshland. So now coming into the back of migration. So when Indonesian people from Indonesia and Malaysian people migrated, they started their own culture that is known as Malagasy culture. What happened thereafter was there was contact with the Arab trader that started to come to Madagascar in around 7th century. They brought with them Islam. It's a funny fact, but what happened? What is the reason behind the European getting into contact with Madagascar is that European were in search of India and accidentally one of the Portuguese explorer named Diogo Dias landed in Madagascar port. And that was the first time that Madagascar came into contact with European, and it was all accidentally. Things changed in the year 1882 when France came into light. So in what happened in year 1882 is that French exchanged the colony of Madagascar. It means that French get Madagascar in return of it giving the land of Zanzibar to the Britain. There was some rebellion against the French government, but the Madagascar annexation was done in the year 1896, and from 1896 to 1960 there was a French control over the island of Madagascar. Europeans did not only bring with themselves a new culture but a new society, and that was the coming of missionaries that came into Madagascar. For a fact that I would let our user aware that missionaries are the first hand instruments of colonizers to make any country colonized. They were the first hand. They used to go to the deeper inside of the countries, and they used to survey the country, what kind of society exists there. They used to convert the ancient kingdom. That happened most in the case of Africa. So missionary was the first instrument that colonizers make use to convert a country into a colony. I want to mention the few of the very famous personalities that came into Madagascar. One of them is Albert Rakoto Ratsi Mamango. He was a scientific pioneer. He published more than 350 of papers. His work was mainly focused on combining the Western scientific concept and its indigenous way of healing people. He make use of the indigenous flora that existed in Madagascar nature. He has done an extensive work on that thing. The other famous personality that I would like to make our user aware is Giselle Razabehla. She was the first woman to be elected for the Antaimoro City Council. She had a great role to play in the independence struggle of Madagascar. Then I would like to mention about Eric Manana. He is also famously known as the Bob Dylan of Madagascar. In fact, Bob Dylan should not be a good word, and I would like to take a viewer attention toward this particular naming of thing. That, for example, in India, what we see is that when we hear about Samudragupta, many people call Samudragupta the Napoleon of India. But for a fact, Napoleon come much later than Samudragupta. So this is also of what we colonies, the former colonies of Western past suffer, that we have, our minds has been colonized to such an extent that even when we compare our idol or our famous personalities, we prefer to compare with them with the Western icons. Then there is Jean Raharibinana. He's a very famous poet. He's also known as the great poet of Madagascar. Then there is Jacques Robert Menangar. He's a great freedom fighter of Madagascar. He had a great role play in the freedom fighter. He was also a politician, a playwright. He's very famously, he has done a great work on the genre of Negritude. You might be aware, Negritude was a term that has a very broad impact on the colonies and on the African nations especially. The leaders that are associated with Negritude is Leopold Sedar Senegal, the first president of Senegal, and the other like Emily Césaire and others. Then there is a famous poet of Madagascar who is also softly known as Rado. I want to recite one of his poems in which he says, "You are meeting her, but do not tell her about my suffering. Let her ignore the bite of pain that is tearing up my being in the wave she trapped me in, my sweating heart that chokes me silently at midnight. When I ponder my fault, do not let her know. Do not let her know." One famous personality that I forgot to mention is Queen Ranavalon. Ranavalon I. She ruled the Madagascar during 1828 to 61. She was a pioneer of the feminism movement in a fact that she stood against the British colonial power, saying that she will not allow them to rule in the Madagascar. In fact, she issued an edict that prohibited the foreigner from residing in Madagascar. Madagascar mainly has 20 tribes, 20 ethnic tribes in it. Merina is the majority among all the ethnic tribes. Merina generally resides in Central Highland, and for a fact, the Indian and Asian people are mainly the Central Highland people, and they are mainly the Merina tribe that mainly migrated during the French colonialism and thereafter. Christianity is a major religion in Madagascar, and for a fact, more than 80% of people practice Christianity. But there is a catch. People practice Christianity by following their traditional method of religion. So Christianity, theirs is a very comprehensive mixture of both Christianity and the traditional method. Madagascar also has a very great love for their nature. In fact, there is a similarity between Indian and Madagascar people, because tamarind is also, take the example of tamarind tree. Tamarind tree is famous in India for various reasons, and it is also worshipped on Madagascar. The staple food of Madagascar is rice. So we had an interaction with the Honorable Ambassador of Madagascar to India, and she was saying that rice is the very much staple food of Madagascar. Rice is present everywhere. In fact, they have a rice cake. Now coming to the language, Malagasy and French are the official language of Madagascar. Coming to the Madagascar sport, so rugby, soccer and pentatonic is famous sports that are being played at Madagascar. Madagascar society has many a value, but 4 values that I would like to mention is solidarity, karma, destiny and a sacred life. They believe that life has a sacred force behind. Madagascar is also rich in natural resources, but few things that I would like to mention is vanilla. In fact, 20% of Madagascar economy is dependent on vanilla. Then there is cobble, then there is iron ore, then there is titanium, then there is gold. The one burning issue that Madagascar is suffering right now is the climate change. As you might be aware, climate change is happening and it's real. So it all started when the people started to migrate to Madagascar for their existence. What happened? They followed the slash and burn agriculture. So what is slash and burn agriculture? You might be aware. If not, check the YouTube. Due to the slash and burn agriculture, there was a great amount of deforestation that took place in Madagascar, and that become an issue, and that is becoming an issue. Climate change will affect Madagascar most because it is a completely an island state and also one of the largest island state of the world.